Today, I'm going to make a video about something very personal to me. I'm probably going to overshare a little bit, and I'm doing it because I hope that by sharing that it'll help other people that maybe went through the same situations that I did. My name is Dr. Mitchell Bertrand. I'm an OB-GYN practicing in Miami Beach. And what I want to talk about today is dyslexia. I am very dyslexic. I grew up knowing I was dyslexic. I was diagnosed in about third grade. And for some context, dyslexia, ADHD, these were topics that people did not as openly talk about back then as they do now. And these were things that I struggled with a lot as a kid. And I think that being dyslexic and having some ADD put me through a lot of hardships as a kid. But I think it also has really helped me now that I'm adult to learn to deal with these issues. So I'm hoping that by sharing with, the world, if anyone watches this and they may be going through the same issues or know someone or love someone that are going through these issues, that maybe this video might help them. For some context, I grew up in Miami Beach. I'm a twin. My twin brother is not dyslexic. So I would, in my early years, go through classes, and I was always the first one out on the spelling bee. I had such difficulty learning, specifically reading and writing. And it was really difficult because imagine you have someone with basically the same genes as you do. He's a fraternal twin. He's not identical. But he was always the top of his class. Reading and writing came really easy to him. And I would just sit there wondering, what's wrong with me? Why am I dumber than everyone else? And it really caused a lot of self-esteem and depression issues with me. And it really started distancing me, and it kind of, I don't know, I feel like there's an outlier effect that works in a good way and a bad way. In this case, for me, it was clearly in a bad way. But going through that time and just basically feeling inferior. Eventually, in third grade, the teachers mentioned it to my mom, and she decided to get me tested. And they told me, hey, I'm smart, 95th percentile in comprehension, but he can't take in any information or express any information. And I feel like I was just smart enough at that time to realize they're just calling me stupid. And I went to a Jewish religious school, and my mom would take me out of those Hebrew religious classes to go take me to a dyslexic school. So that was super helpful. One of my earliest memories as a kid was my mom locking me in the bathroom every day, forcing me to read a page to her every day. And it was so hard for me. But I can't imagine how hard it was for my mom. She would hear me going the over and over and over again. And I don't know. So I don't know how she had the patience to do it. Eventually, I got a little better. I got through it. Luckily, I was able to get some accommodations to kind of help me. But the self-esteem and the learning how to learn. So imagine you're going through a school system that 90% of people, they learn through read, write. That's like how most people learn. And for people who are dyslexic, it is not a good system at all. And I'm going to talk about later in the video on, thankfully, with the advances of technology, there's so many ways to compensate. And that is, I guess, spoiler, one of the ways I've got through a lot of these issues and learning to compensate was the use of technology, which is why I'm such a big advocate for technology, AI, is because for people like me, it is a lot. It was so fast to implement because I could see the utility. Like for me, imagine when you have such a strong pain point for something, your ability to implement is a lot faster and you're a lot more motivated. So through my childhood, those were things I was dealing with. I went to a 200 kid Jewish school, which is a tiny, tiny school. And I felt like they did not really have the resources to help me. But at the same time, I was also kind of sheltered. I'm not sure. I remember because I was very into music at that time. I played classical guitar. And I remember begging my parents to send me to public school because I wanted to play music and do a bunch of extracurricular activities that were not available to me. And I'm pretty sure my parents kept me there because they realized I probably would not have passed the standardized exams. So I kind of got pushed through the school and I went to University of Maryland where I went from 200 kid school to a 200 kid class. And I remember wanting to be pre-med at that time. And I remember teaching people organic chemistry and then failing the class because when you have these learning disorders, a lot of times the way you express information is really hard. And the learning how, like, there's two things there's learning the material, and there's also learning how to express and get the right answer. They're two completely separate skill sets. And that second skill set is something that I eventually learned later, and I'll talk about what I did to help myself. But it is unbelievably heartbreaking for yourself when you feel just imagine you have these ambitions and goals, and no matter what you do, you feel like you're getting trapped, like all the doors are like closing in on you because no matter what you do, even if you are able to teach the material, you cannot do well on the tests. And that leads to a lot of just being very disheartened, honestly, and really lack of like really not motivating. Eventually I ended up transferring home from Nova because I was doing not that great in school. Nova is like a small private school in Davie, Florida. And I had to do a lot of soul searching and getting my stuff together. Eventually, when I was home, I finally started feeling better. Got more self esteem back because I got pretty depressed at the time because the environment of just like feeling like the low self esteem, hey, you had all these ambitions to be a doctor. I had this idea originally. I wanted to go into primary care. I love the idea of keeping people healthy, making like a physical change for people. And you just see that disappear. So I changed my major to psychology. I always loved psychology, learning how people work. And I got really into learning. There's something called NLP, neuro linguistic programming. And it was really interesting to me because they go through like reading faces and they go through how you process information in different ways. And through that time, I did well in my psychology classes. I eventually learned to learn, and a lot of it is just repetition. And one of the biggest ways that I got through those classes is I learned to make friends, and I learned, ironically, to find some very neurotic type A students, and I'd make friends with them, and I would learn with them. And I found because I naturally have a very low key, grounded energy. And because they're more neurotic, I would learn with them. And sounds kind of weird. I learned really well through arguing and conversation. It helps me process. For me to actually express information, I need to know it at a considerably deeper level than most people. I have no ability to memorize. But once I have a deep understanding of something, I have the ability to express it. So through that learning process and building myself up, honestly, in classes that are a little easier than pre-med, obviously, I was starting to learn how to take tests and I started learning how to express that information better. And I remember I had to write a lot of papers and doing a lot of citations. And you learned some technology workarounds there. I think at that time I'd use like a citing program called Zotero. And it took a lot of the nuance work that I'd mess up all the time on how to like cite things and put things together, and it would do it for me. I would just have to put my ideas down, and I also would have other people read through my essays, etc. So it became grammatically correct. Eventually then, during that time, I happened to meet my wife. That's a whole other story. And my wife, by the way, is amazing. She's considerably smarter than I am, in my opinion. She's one of the most ambitious people as far as the ability to get something done and connector that I've ever met in my life. Completely in awe with her. Completely very different than me. She's, by the way, a lawyer. She's like the complete. Our strengths are, let's put it this way, we balance each other very well because her strengths I'm horrible at, and what I'm good at, she did, like, as far as technology, math, science, has not her strong point. And seeing her influence is like, she's one of those people that would just wake up every morning and want to kick the door down and keep going and going and going. And I started picking up those habits because those are habits I never learned. And a lot of it was because I was disheartened as a child. Like, no matter what effort you put in, you didn't get any output. But eventually learning where to put that energy and that output really helps me finally learn how to answer questions correctly, learn multiple choice. And it just took, I think, 100 times the effort to figure it out. But actually, I got pretty good at test taking after a while because I learned the patterns and I learned how to answer questions the way they're asked. And eventually, then I went through and I decided, you know what, I want to do pre-med again. And I went through pre-med, and because I was failing out of my classes, essentially, I applied to med school with a 2.7 GPA. So I ended up going out of the country to St. George's University, and they gave me a shot. And I took those things that I learned and I really, really learned how to study there. And I made some friends that I learned with. And luckily at that time, I didn't take any notes because I never learned how to take notes for myself because I could not focus on what the teacher was saying and write at the same time. It's something I could never do. But because the lectures were recorded, I could watch them and watch them again. And then because I made friends with people who were very good note takers, I would learn with them. And because of that, I did very well in med school and I did very well in my boards, which set me up to get into residency. And then in residency, I dealt with my own issues because the first thing you do in residency is you are an intern. And as an intern, you're basically a secretary. And being a secretary and being dyslexic is not a good combination. So I apologize to all my seniors that had to deal with me basically being a secretary, but I got through, I learned, and actually the process of residency, which was very good, it basically pushes your mind and body to the limit. I don't know, it's a little inhumane, but you learn a lot about yourself and what pressure you can go through. And now that I went through all of like where I am now, I look back at how I went through the school system, and I really wish I knew what I knew today to go back and teach myself because I think I would have went through a lot easier of a situation. And I think I also would have saved myself a lot of hardship. Advantages I will tell you of going through all that hardship, and I think it does actually make me a better doctor, is when you get knocked down early, like I did, I think it has helped me empathize a lot with people. I think it's also let me take risks as far as, hey, me talking to a camera is so awkward for me. And I know it's weird. And I know a lot of these videos come out funny, but I'm okay with that because no one can judge me as hard as I judge myself and what I put myself through. So it allows me now to understand I'm very comfortable being uncomfortable, which lets me take risks and put myself out there in a way that I don't think if I had an ego that has not been smashed down so many times from when I was younger, I don't think I could mentally do that. So it has really helped me develop my character into someone that can withstand a lot more social pressure. And it also, like in my job as an OB-GYN, it allows me to emotionally hold space and I think read people a lot better. It has allowed me to, because one of the ways that I compensated was connecting with people and being there. And it really helps me connect with people better and allow me to be there for people in a way that I think if I'd never developed that skill, because I do think it's a skill, if I had all the attributes and I just did well in school from the beginning. So if I were to go back now, what would I do different? How would I teach myself? How am I going to teach my kids if they end up being dyslexic? Because by the way, I'm dyslexic. My dad's dyslexic. I'm pretty sure my grandfather was dyslexic, not that he knew. But my wife's sister, dad, grandfather are also dyslexic. So it's something that is constantly on my mind on how am I going to, if my kids end up dyslexic like me, how am I going to teach them? I think it's really important. One of the things that also really helps me is my family was unbelievably supportive to the point where they were very understanding. And no matter how many times I fell, they'd pick me back up. And I really, really think that if I did not have that, I wouldn't be where I am today. The other thing too is the use of technology is so, the things that I'm able to do now versus before is absolutely incredible as far as teaching goes. And I guess this goes for everyone. Like we're in this weird situation right now where for generations, intellect was the most important thing as far as success. As soon as we left basically doing like manual labor jobs and we went into like a society where your ability to use your brain was helpful. So now, because of AI, you could have a average IQ, even a below average IQ, and you have all the information that was ever given to anyone at your fingertips. So the question is like, how do I teach my kids and how do I help them compensate? Because no matter what, everyone needs to learn to read, write, do math, and get through that system. But I think technology is a huge lever. And just basically telling them that they're okay and being patient with them and going at their own pace, and also teaching them how to teach themselves. Like for me personally, I'm very visual, audio, kinesthetic. I need to touch things with my hands. I need to go through it. And luckily, there's so many more resources available for kids. So that is a huge first step. But I think also taking that and actually using education for what it's meant for, which is to get kids ready for the world, it's a completely different game now. So I think learning how to integrate kids better that are dyslexic and just letting them know that there are a huge amount of strengths. Because of my predispositions, I hate talking about things like this because it makes me sound a little egotistical and very not humble. The things that I do better than most people is I have a better time. I think I'm more creative. I push myself farther in many of those pursuits than a lot of other people because I had to. I think creativity is a byproduct of necessity. Like some people say, hey, to be creative, you need the biggest open landscape to create. That's not true. Usually, if you put someone in a setting of restriction, it forces creativity, which you may not have had access to beforehand, if that makes any sense at all. So if you're someone that is going through this, I hear you and it's hard, but I think if you get through the other side, there's going to be huge opportunities for you. And the question is just how do you set that up for yourself? Things I'd recommend is if you're a parent, is just support them and just there's so many books now on dyslexia on how to deal with it, but make it empowering and focus. Also, you want to build their confidence because especially in the traditional school system, it's very linear and it pushes specific skill sets forward and other ones down that are not necessarily like applicable to life. Make it a game. Make sure that they understand the importance of reading and writing and give them the support, but also understand that they're going to go at their own pace and just spending some time doing other stuff that they're good at so they have that self-esteem and they feel some worth, especially if they're also like me and they have ADD. And I do think I have ADD, but for a lot of times I questioned it because I'm like, did I just not pay attention because I couldn't read? Or was it because I actually had ADD? I think it's both, but you want to make it so they have an intrinsic desire because the amount of effort they're going to have to put through to get those basic skill sets done is going to be 10 to 100 times more than the average kid. So you have to intrinsically align them. Find something that they like and something they're willing to put an extreme amount of effort in because they love it. And if you can make it so reading and writing is a stepping stone to get there, their motivation will be a lot higher and they need easy wins in surrounding obstacles or things around there. Like, for example, if they like creating, let's say, for example, or random one, I don't know why this is coming to my head. Let's say, fine, I guess photography, let's say they wanted to learn how to use something like Lightroom and they wanted to learn how to put masks, mirrors, how lighting works. They still need to learn in a specific way. And a lot of it is they can learn from videos, but they still need to learn text. They need to know how those things work. So if they had to learn a certain level of reading and writing, to get there, their motivation to learn will be a lot higher. And by the way, it doesn't need to be that high. Like currently, through my last tests, my ability to read was at a 6th grade level. And I'm a successful doctor and I'm good at what I do. And I think I think like most skills and same thing with IQ, they work in, it's not a linear increase as there's basically certain levels that unlock certain potential and getting them just to that bare bones, just like they don't need to be, I'm pretty sure if you put me in a 5th grade spelling bee, I'd probably still be the first one out, but I'm very good at delivering babies. I'm very good at diagnosing medical issues. I'm very good at surgical skills, etc. But I still needed to get to the point that I could get through medical school. I've been rambling for a little bit. If anyone has any questions or if they want me to make a follow-up video on specifics, since this has been a lot more free-form thought experiment for me to just kind of get this off my chest and let you guys know more about me, let me know. And I'm happy to make more videos, especially if you think it would help someone that you care about. Again, this is not the typical video I make. I usually make more OB-GYN content, but I'm still trying to find my voice and my best way to help you guys. Again, being vulnerable and experimenting. Have a good day.